they need to know who they're working with. They need to know that human being behind that screen. They're on these meetings. They need to know who that other person is, right? On the other side of the screen. What is that human being about? Like, what are their problems? Who are they? What do they like? What do they not like?
Hello, and welcome to Love as a Strategy, a podcast that brings humanity to the workplace. We're here to talk about all things business, but we want to tackle topics that most business leaders shy away from. We believe that humanity and love should be at the center of every successful business. I'm your host, Jeff Ma, and as always, I'm here to have conversations and hear stories about real people, real business, and real life. Today, I'm really thrilled to introduce Vasanthan Ramakrishnan, or Vaz for short. Vaz is an entrepreneur, technologist, human rights activist, and immigration consultant born in Madurai, India. And Vaz is a first-generation immigrant to the U.S. and the founder of Ascent HSI Advisory Partners, which is a firm specializing in U.S. employment-based visas for high-skilled individuals. And through Ascend, which has grown to over 100 people across the US, India, and Nigeria, he focuses on creating permanent pathways for other first generation immigrants. And before founding Ascend, Vaz demonstrated his commitment to human rights and technology by scaling a nonprofit focused on child internet safety and developing SciSafe, which is an AI tool for detecting cyberbullying. He's also an author of 2 books and has received multiple honorary doctorates and national awards for his advocacy. So today I want to dive into this incredible personal journey and how overcoming challenges has shaped his perspective on resilience, service, and really how he manages to bridge different cultural norms to embed a service-first culture across his global team. And with that, I'd love to welcome Vaz. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Jeff. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Super, super excited to be here.
Yes, I know we had a chance to chat a little bit before this, and your story is just so compelling. I'm excited to hear more about it. Before we dive in, I'm wondering if you could share kind of the most important question I like to start with, which is, what is your passion and how did you find it?
Got it. So, it's a bit layered, right? Like, when someone says, "What's your passion?" A lot of people talk about, kind of, their current company and what their company is doing. Some people talk about aspirational stuff. Some people have like solid, "Oh, this is exactly what my passion is." For me, though, that definitely took a bit of time to figure out, I would say, because I started out in mechanical engineering. That was my formal education, mechanical and automotive engineering, and then kind of transitioning to industrial engineering and then slowly kind of dabbling into project management for a little bit. And I was in IT, right? I was in AI. I was doing a lot of things, right? And even now, I'm doing a lot of things, right? I mean, with my companies and all of that, I'm doing event management. There's a part that's doing nonprofits. There's an immigration firm, and there's, like a venture firm that we have. We have a lot of things going on. And, when I really sat down and thought about what my passion is, even though I'm doing like so many things that in on paper would not seem the same at all. Like, where's my passion lying, right? So I've asked that question to myself a lot of times. And what I've realized is I feel like my passion is where I can really put my service at the core, right? Like service is always at the core of what I do and where I can serve the most people. And for me, that can come from different places. That need not just be nonprofits, which I'm already doing, but through my immigration firm, through my event management company, through my venture company. We also do real estate investing, and we're super like meaningful in what we invest in and what type of people we're actually able to help in. So I would say my passion lies in doing, any business, any venture where service is at the center of what we're doing. And we're also kind of building a meaningful team where the team is also able to effectively deliver that. And that's not easy, but we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that.
You use service a lot in everything you do. It's service centric. Service is kind of your mission, all these things. Can you define what that means for you? Because that can mean a lot of different things. And I want to know, like, what do you mean when you say service?
Got it. So that again, right? I mean, it's a few things. One is when you look at it from just a purely business standpoint, you are looking at, the service provider, and then you have the client, and then you have a service provider that is just providing the service to the client, and that's more of like a transactional view, I would say. But then what I really mean here is being really meaningful about what you're actually providing to clients. Of course, every business solves problems for clients. That's obviously how business works here. But being super meaningful about what type of problems are you solving for clients or for people in general, and how does that affect them if they don't have that solution. It doesn't matter who's providing what in that particular industry, or for that particular problem. For me, how I look at that service is it has to really tap into a basic fundamental need for people, right? And that's really what I just mean by service here. And I build my team to really identify the problems. In most cases, this is more of a coincidence, not by design, is most likely something that I've gone through myself. So I've been in those shoes. I mean, as a first generation immigrant here, I had a lot of difficulties when I came here. I didn't have a lot of family or friends. I built everything from the ground up. Now we're looking at people who are also going through the same situation, who may have had similar and or cultural or ethnic backgrounds, and we know what those problems are right now, and we serve them through our service firm, right? And again, as I'm saying this does not mean that we don't have any product or tech. No, we have that as well. But kind of keeping that service part of things, which is actually looking at the client, knowing what their problems are, and building a team that meaningfully delivers that service to the client with not just, don't set KPIs on, just random stuff that just looks good on paper, but you're not really serving the clients. There's, not a lot of businesses that do that, but I have seen some businesses that, on paper, they're doing amazing work. Their KPIs are amazing, but are they really serving the clients? Probably not as much as they want to do. So that's kind of how I define service there, Jeff. Like really providing that meaningful service to clients and
Yeah.
building your team to also really, really do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll come back to that for sure, but help me kind of go back a little bit because I know your personal story and how you led up to this is super interesting. So can you help kind of talk about your personal journey and the challenges that shaped how you arrived here at such a service-centric mindset?
Yep, of course. So 2016, right? We go back like 10 years. 2016 is when I came to the US as a international student. I came to the Purdue system, coming into Indiana, Midwest, brutal winters. People are super friendly. That's something that I definitely saw that was great. But there wasn't a lot of diversity at the time that I came in. I think right now it's a whole lot diverse, but 2016 was not. So I was kind of thrown into a system where I did not have the framework, did not have the solutions. I didn't even know how to get a driver's license. I did not know what a social security number was. And, because we don't have that back home. So for me, just about everything was new. I definitely had some wonderful people who helped me out during my student stage. But there was certainly a lot of difficulties that I had to go through as a first generation immigrant. So starting out in 2016, I had I mean, this is something that just came out of nowhere, but I had a car accident in an Uber, and that put me in a wheelchair for 5 weeks, and I was on crutches for almost close to like 7 months. So I lost a whole year of school, I lost a whole year of work, and that as an international student, navigating classes, navigating, your visa situations, that was really brutal, though. Of course, I had a lot of supportive professors, instructors, friends who, really helped me come out of that. But definitely learned a lot from that experience, and I knew why resilience was important, and I knew what other people go through. So that was around like 2017 and 2020, right around COVID. Didn't really know about COVID, but I graduated right around that time. Got an internship at a small manufacturing company in Illinois, and that's my first job type of thing, right? I was employed in India, but like this is my first job in the US, and I wanted to go back home for just 1 month to see my family before I start my new job. I go back, and then COVID hits. And what was a 1 month trip became a 6 month long trip because of lockdowns. All flights were canceled. You could not get out of the country or get into the country back, right? So almost 6 months after, I mean, I don't really blame my employer, but I got fired from the job because they couldn't really wait. It was a manufacturing job. I needed to be physically there. So I enter back into the US and I do not have my job. And I have a 90-day timeline to find a new job back. And that's just what comes with the visa, by the way. That's kind of when I pivoted to project management. I moved away from engineering and manufacturing and kind of moved into IT and like general healthcare and all of that. So kind of like IT project management. And then I'm and in the background of all of this, I should have mentioned it. In the background of all of this, when I went back home and when I had time to like really think about what I want to do in life, I was thinking, hey, Right, sure. We have an internship. We have maybe that will convert into a full-time job. Maybe I'll become a manager one day. That's all a separate path. But what was really striking in my mind is like, what do I want to do? What do I have my passions in? And that's when my nonprofit ideas came into place because I've always been super interested in gender equality and women empowerment. That's something that I've learned from my own mother. She was working, throughout, like, having me and everybody. And she moved to the US in 2005 and she went back though, 2011. She came back for me, but that gave me a lot of lessons on gender equality. So I wanted to really just start a blog, right? Just like a blog where I put down my thoughts. Maybe I would ask other feminists to put down their thoughts, and what started out as that, right? Long story short, in 4 years we became a huge nonprofit. We were operating in 4 countries: India, Netherlands, Dubai, and US, and we had a 50-member team that was operating all over. And during COVID, we were able to launch a lot of nonprofit advocacy missions, and especially for people who are really, really marginalized, we were able to provide a lot of services. And that was all, of course, out of no cost, and we just did that as a voluntary thing. So that really got me fired up with just being an entrepreneur, right? Even though running a nonprofit is not the same thing as just like an entrepreneur, that gave me that spirit of being able to run things. So from that, I was, kind of having my full-time job again, kind of like on, autopilot. It's just going. I'm a project manager at an IT firm, and I'm basically just working with a healthcare client. And that on the background, I'm building Ascent HSI Advisory Partners, and that was kind of really became my passion, and really prompted me to also look at my own immigration situation, which was really, really difficult. I was on my last 2 years of my student visa, and I had to figure out something. So I went from just being only having 2 years of my student visa to getting my green card through what is called the Einstein visa or extraordinary ability visa. A lot of that came from just my nonprofit. I had a lot of awards. I was published on a lot of magazines. I had 200 doctorates at the time. 2025, I got my third one, so that's the third one. But a lot of those accolades really helped me put my case together, and I was strategizing and got my passion really reignited. So having that nonprofit background and being that nonprofit entrepreneur with looking at my passion and what I had through my own journey with immigration prompted me to really launch SNHS Advisory Partners. We started out small. We were just doing, just helping out friends and people who came over through referrals. We were helping. And again, long story short, over there, in about 3 years now, we are a 100% team in India, Nigeria, US. We're expanding into the Portugal market, the Chinese market, Taiwan, and hopefully one in like South America as well. So we've been doing great work so far, and we've been able to help a lot of immigrant families so far, over 172 to be precise, but looking forward to doing more. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, such an incredible story of, I mean, you just congratulations on all your success and all the hard work you put into such an amazing journey that also just entails a little bit of everything, right? A little bit of work, nonprofit, entrepreneurship. But now that we're in this space talking about, now you're leading nonprofits, you're leading business, you have people who depend on you. I really want to better understand your mindset around the culture that you build around this work, whether it's in your nonprofits or in your business. What's important to you when it comes to culture, and where does that human centered or love based concept show up for you?
Correct. So for us, I would say it's throughout the life cycle of any person we're working with. But to just get specific here, the number one thing we tell every employee in the organization, regardless of where they're working from, they could be working from any country. Even though we have 3 offices, we have people working from Pakistan, we have people working from Brazil, we have people working from Portugal. We have a lot of employees that are working from where we don't have an office. But regardless of their work location, regardless of their function, they could be sales, business development, they could be management. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If their team Ascend or if their team Feminist Spin Foundation, right? Like, both the nonprofit and here, every client that we service is a real human being. We do not look at them as a contract. I know when you grow and you scale and you have a lot of clients, right now we have like more than 300 active clients. It's absolutely difficult to look at every single person's, what do they have? But we've been able to put really meaningful efforts into looking at that client as a real human being. They are a real human being with their real constraints. They might have had, they might have brought in whatever baggage they brought in when they came to our service, and we ask that our employees and team members really look into that, right? So I might actually, for example, I might actually have a client who has, and this is a real story, right? I had a client who actually had cancer and was going through cancer treatments, and she was just at a position where she could not give it. let go of everything and she could not go back home because she was doing a high stake biotech job and she could not just leave it. But at the same time, she had to also get her immigration sorted. And, she goes to her treatments in the morning and then she would not be able to have any calls in the morning, even though the way that our team is set up is like we try to have all the calls in the morning. But we have to make an exception for a client like that because she's going for treatments in the morning and she only comes back and she has a 2 hour window in the evening to take calls. And given all the treatment and the intensity, she could not invest a lot of, I mean, she was able to invest the money, but not invest a lot of time and effort into the application. So our team understood that, and we took a lot of efforts into kind of doing a lot of stuff for her, things that we could transfer, of course, not everything, but the things we could do on behalf of her and reduce the workload and the stress that she would be taking. Of course, she's approved now and she's happy about it. So this is just one example, though, of a client that has a personal situation. I've had clients who have children who have disabilities. I've had, clients who have a situation with, their child going through college or they're going through med school and it's a super expensive endeavor and they're not able to pay on time. Or, they have a situation where they're like, okay, I need to either push my journey, ahead, or I need to really crunch my journey so that I get everything done, but I don't have the money for it. So I've had some really difficult conversations with a lot of clients, but if we look at clients as just numbers, I think I think the humanity is lost over there. So my
Mm.
firm particularly, we look at every single client, what their situation is, what do they come with, what are they made of, like, right? I mean, where are they coming from, and how can we best serve them? So a one size fit all service is not going to work. Although we do have a standard, we have an operating procedure, we have a framework and methodology that we work with clients, and they go through a certain step. But at the end of the day, exceptions do need to be made. And like even like I said, like exceptions, I would say the main thing is like the person who's working, that be my attorney or my CSM, they need to know who they're working with. They need to know that human being behind that screen. They're on these meetings. They need to know who that other person is, right? On the other side of the screen. What is that human being about? Like, what are their problems? Who are they? What do they like? What do they not like? And the same goes to my employees as well, by the way, because my clients do return that back. My clients look at my employees' personal situation. They look at their, family situations. They look at their, constraints, challenges. It goes both ways. But I think if we as service providers do that for our clients, I feel that our clients do that back for us.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. But my curiosity kind of takes me into, okay, if you're building this type of team, now looking internally at the, 100 plus employees, and what are you doing to instill this in them? Because as they do the work, to build these connections, what are you looking for in the right kind of employee to be able to do this?
Mm.
There's technical skills, there's trade skills, there's all these expertise and education, but then this ability to understand other humans and relate with them might sit in a different, realm or category. How do you make sure that you have the right people doing the right things and keep them motivated in this way, keep them aligned to your cultural vision? What are some of the ways that you look at that?
Okay, I think the top thing I would definitely say is leading by example. I've seen that that works the best with both the nonprofit and the business that we're doing currently. I lead it first. Like, I'm the person who I know everybody in my organization looks up to me. So I do that first by showing that empathy, showing that there's a human being behind that contract, right? So I make that very specific. I talk about that in our town hall meetings that we hold monthly. I talk about that in leadership meetings where we bring in our middle level and managers from like all countries. And sometimes we have these all hands calls that we talk about where like there's a client escalation or there's some situation going on. So I'm super specific. I always talk about that. I don't just mention the client just in passing. I want to talk about what happened with that client. Why are they doing what they're doing? So that's one thing, like, leading by example. And then what we've also been able to instill is like now bring that back out to all my middle level managers, which has been super important, by the way. I think it's easy to kind of put that on your VPs and directors, but your VPs and directors are not going to work with clients, but your mid-level managers might be working there. So we kind of like identified about 6 or 7 different levels that we have in the organization. And if the first 3 levels directly work with me and I instill that value, they're able to put that onto their next 4 levels that go down. So my goal with this whole initiative is to make sure that from the top till the bottom, till the interns, till even volunteers for that matter, need to know that this is a strategy that the organization is following and they need to fit well into that. That's one thing. The second thing is also, I think it's difficult to assess this in an interview, right? For a new employee, you cannot talk to them about it, especially if they're not from the service sector. They're not going to know this thing. So, what I have found a lot of success in is and this is a core belief of mine. Of course, people will differ, but my core belief is that everybody has some humanity inside them. Everybody has empathy. Everybody has all of that already inbuilt. But I think it's your job as an employer, as a leader, as a manager to activate that. So we've put down a lot of money, time, and efforts into talking one-to-one with the employees, having a personal connection with them and teaching them what the organization is about. What is the mission of the organization? Do not just look at our webpage. Do not look at the about the organization. Understand why we are doing what we are doing. And when you give that background to employees, I've seen that in my experience, they're able to really see why we're doing what we're doing and how they should treat the clients. And again, this is also important, by the way. As we say all of this, I cannot also mistreat my employees. I cannot not follow this with my employees and ask them to follow that with the clients. I have to do that with both the employees and the clients, and that has seen the most success.
Awesome. I love that you laid that out and with almost with tactics and with approach. And I think that's something that a lot of leaders struggle with is this we can appreciate humanity at its surface level. And then when it comes time for pressure and deadlines and money, a lot of it gets lost in translation. As we kind of round out our conversation here, I'm wondering in all the journey you've had, you faced a lot of challenges and growth and learning. And one of the goals of having this conversation is to help listeners take a shortcut, learn from you, hear your story and be able to try something new. So I'm wondering, do you have a challenge for any listener who's trying to approach things the way you're doing it? Do you have a challenge for them, a simple challenge that they can try this week or this month
Mm,
as a leader in their organization? What's a challenge you could issue them to go
mm.
try and do with their teams or with their customers?
Okay, that's a good one. So I would say definitely, you know what, a lot of, like I said, like earlier, right? Like a lot of organizations put down all these big mission statements and vision statements, and they look super great on paper, but are we actually following it, right? And that's a question that I would start with, that maybe there could be like a VP or a director or like a mid-level manager, but maybe they can do a quick assessment on, hey, this is what the organization wants us to do, and this is what the mission and the vision is. But are we as a team, as an individual, the person, and are we as a team actually following that? I would grab a paper, just write down what the mission, the vision is, and then think about what am I doing daily, right? On a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Am I actually following that? Am I actually aligning with the mission or not? And that is not just with, oh, what code I'm producing or what projects I'm launching, but it really boils down to the level of how am I talking to my employees right now? How do I hold meetings? And, how do I basically, how do I handle an employee when there's a complaint on them, when there's a HR issue? Look at every step of the way and actually see, am I aligning with the mission of the organization, or am I just doing my own thing and I'm just kind of putting that on paper and saying, hey, yeah, this is our mission and vision, but we're not really following that. I would definitely say that's a good challenge for one to look at.
I love that answer. What an incredible answer. I wasn't sure where you're going to go with it, but that's such an incredible, incredible step for people to take. And I just, that's such a simple thing that people skip because we kind of take for granted what's around us and what's told to us, but really checking ourselves and introspecting on whether or not it has meaning for us can be such a powerful, powerful step of like self-awareness and growth. So with
And
that,
one would be surprised, by the way, what they find out. I mean, it could be a good or bad thing, but I personally feel that they'd be pleasantly surprised.
yeah, I think so too. Vas, thank you so much for this quick talk, but this really, really awesome story and these thought provoking, sentiments you've shared. I think the audience has a lot to take away from this to go think about. So I appreciate you for your time today and for sharing your story.
No problem at all, Jeff. Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure talking with you, and yeah, hoping to have more conversations.
Yeah, if anyone wants to reach out or learn more, what can they do to learn more and hear more from you?
The best way I would say is depending on, what type of, like maybe what type of organization, company, person they are. The easiest, most neutral way to reach to me would just be my LinkedIn. All of my work is there, and they'll be able to, like, find out what I'm doing. And if they want to just do a quick chat, I think they can just send me an email or just like send me a connection request. And that's the easiest way I would say. I can happily like also leave my email, but that's specific to Ascend. So I'm not really sure how many people would need that. So LinkedIn would be more simpler, I would say.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to the audience for tuning in. As always, please check out our books, Love as a Business Strategy, Love as a Change Strategy. Look up Vaz as well in LinkedIn. We'll drop a link down bottom, but he also has written books and he has a lot more to say that I want you to check out. So make sure to check him out. But in the meantime, hope you're enjoying the episodes and you're tuning in for next week, or sorry, every 2 weeks. So with that, thank you to everybody, and we hope you have a wonderful week.